The Battle of Badajoz was one of the first major nationalist victories in the Spanish Civil War. A series of costly assaults won the Nationalists the fortified border city of Badajoz on August 14, 1936. Cutting off the Spanish Republic from neighboring Portugal and linking the northern and southern zones of nationalist control. Strategic situation. In the summer of 1936, German and Italian airlifts, and later the Nationalist fleet, transported almost 10,000 regular troops of the Spanish Army of Africa to southern Spain across the Straits of Gibraltar. The Nationalists, led by Francisco Franco, assembled at Seville, and on August 1, General Franco ordered a sweep north to link up with General Mola's distant forces, led in the field by Colonel Carlos Asensio and Major Antonio Castellón. The Nationalist army dashed north in motorized detachments, pausing to bombard and capture walled frontier towns. Mérida fell after a stiff fight on the banks of the Guadiana River, leaving the neighboring city of Badajoz, now the last remaining Republican outpost on the Portuguese border, isolated from the Republic. Franco personally supervised the operation against Mérida and on the evening of August 10, received Yeague in his headquarters to discuss the capture of Badajoz and the next objectives. He wanted to knock out the city to unify the two sections of the rebel zone and leave the left flank of the advancing columns covered by the Portuguese border. It was a strategic error, contributing to the delay which allowed the government to organize its defenses. Yeague marched against Badajoz with 2,250 soldiers of the Spanish Foreign Legion, 750 Moroccan regulars, and 5 field batteries, leaving Major Helitella behind to hold Mérida. Inside the ancient fortress city, large sections of whose walls had been demolished some years before the war, Colonel Ildefonso Puigdemont commanded about 6,000 Republican militia. On August 6, when the Nationalist army approached, a body of Guardia Civil attempted to defect to the rebels. Puigdemont crushed the revolt, but it sapped his forces of men and morale. The battle. Before the attack, Badajoz was continuously bombarded by Nationalist artillery and bombers for a period of 3 days. The city had been flooded with refugees and the atmosphere in the city was one of doom-laden anticipation. The rebels launched their attack on the morning of August 14, after shelling the town for most of the day. A unit of the Spanish Foreign Legion, the IV Bandera, stormed the Puerta de la Trinidad. The defenders' most reliable force, the Carabineros, had been placed there in anticipation of the action. Determined resistance by Republican machine gunners and riflemen checked the assault, shredding several waves of Nationalist troops. Ignoring their losses, the Legionnaires pressed on. A charge led by armored cars won the gate, and the Nationalists overtook the defenders, pouring through the breach and killing them in hand-to-hand combat. But the cost was appalling. The attacking 16th Company had lost 76 out of 90 officers and men. All of the unit's officers fell in the attack excepting the captain and 1 corporal. Meanwhile, Asensio's men had entered in the city by a breach in the city walls. The storming of the Puerta de la Trinidad was later seen as useless. On the south side of the city, Nationalist units stormed the walls with less difficulty. The Moroccan Tetuan regulars pushed through the Puerta de los Carros, and the Legionnaires and Moroccans swept the Republicans from the barracks. Meanwhile, many soldiers inside the city defected to the rebels, easily allowing the entrance of the attackers into the city. Once inside the ramparts, they drove the Republican militia before them, knifing and bayoneting their way toward the city center, including killing those who had thrown down their weapons and had their hands up. Street fighting raged past nightfall. The Legionnaires later captured 43 wounded milicianos in the military hospital, and afterward, killed them. Colonel Puigdemont, along with the mayor and other members of the defense committee, had slipped out of the city at about 9 a.m. and fled to Portugal. Aftermath. The fall of Badajoz tore from the Republic the large region of Extremadura, north of Huelva, which was later subdued and swallowed up by the emerging nationalist state. After the battle, Yeague turned northeastward toward Madrid and the Tagus River. During his trek, he engaged Republican forces in pitched battles in the weeks that followed. The Battle of Badajoz followed patterns that continued throughout much of the summer. The Spanish regular army would prove able to sweep prepared defenses held by superior enemy forces, but often suffered staggering losses of its best troops. By year's end, much of the Spanish Foreign Legion lay dead, scattered along a trail of walled towns stretching from Seville to the outskirts of Madrid. Massacre of civilians. It has been widely reported that the Nationalists sacked Badajoz and killed thousands of prisoners and civilians, culminating in an infamous round of executions in the town's bull ring, where machine guns were set up on the barriers around the ring. The screams of the dying could be heard many streets away. Murder and mass rape fled unchecked for several days, and Yeague's failure to call a halt to the killings earned him the nickname, the Butcher of Badajoz. Foreign correspondents, depending on their political sympathies, reported between an estimated 1,800 and 4,000 civilian deaths. There are various eyewitness accounts and other reports of the massacre of Badajoz, including some from foreign correspondents, such as J. Allen, Mario Neves, and Marcel Dany and René Bru. There are also photographs that survive of the massacre. Today, most historians recognize that Yeague killed thousands of militiamen and civilians after the fall of the city and burned the corpses because he didn't want to leave enemies, either soldiers or civilians, to the rear of his army. In fact, Yeague was quoted to have said the following to one J.T. Whittaker: "Of course we shot him. He said to me, 'What do you expect? Was I supposed to take 4,000 Reds with me as my column advanced, racing against time? Was I expected to turn them loose in my rear and let them make Badajoz red again?'" The massacre at Badajoz was not a unique case in the march of Yeague's column from Seville to Badajoz. In every city conquered by Yeague's men, many civilians were killed. In fact, over 6,000 people were killed in the province of Badajoz alone.